Hey everybody, welcome to what I call the reboot, and essentially this reflects, it's a play on words of computer rebooting and me being able to come back and join the, I don't even know what to call this, but yeah, so today is Saturday, what is this? March 29th. And yesterday I had the privilege of joining the StreamYard. Lead Farmer was looking for people to just speak on land, and I guess get people in the spirit of like just sharing experiences about land and repping your city and or your state. And I just wanted to go a little bit deeper on the pros and cons. I did get to speak a little bit on there, but I do think it probably is better to just elaborate a little bit on what, what would I say in total pros and cons. So obviously, I'm a New Yorker. Family's from the South. My mom was born in Harlem, so I guess at least one generation removed from the South as a family. So that's a hard start in itself because there isn't much that was passed down to me that reflects like what I do today and how I conduct myself today. And I think that it does sometimes when I'm going through challenges, I do wish there was like some information, something that I could grab. And I think that's how YouTube has been so helpful for me over the years. I've definitely utilized it. Definitely YouTube University all the way for me. I can't imagine. I really wish I knew the amount of hours of investment was involved. Most of what I'm watching are educational videos, and I'm pretty good with holding that information and sort of treating it like a lab. When you have land, you're able to take that information and try things. And of course, early on, you're gonna get super excited and you try things. I've tried things from everybody, and to be honest with you, everything doesn't work. Doesn't matter who you took things from. There's a little bit of them in their ecosystem or their current situation, which is making those things produce the results that they have. So that's really the investment. So going back to like being from New York, I think it's critical to just speak pros and cons from where I'm at, what I think about what I'm thinking, the way that I think. If I just had to say, I don't really think pros and cons, but like, what are your true limitations? It's hard for me because I believe that the world, things are gonna shift, and no matter where you are, you're gonna have to apply. You're gonna have to apply for whatever your desired outcome is. You're gonna have to apply inputs to lead to that, right? So we already know compared to the South that New York is gonna have a shorter growing season, but I personally tried to combat that, and I think I was somewhat successful. I started getting into not greenhouses in its entirety, but definitely finding ways. Hold on, I got an incense burning. Finding ways to cover, my crops so I could start early. Initially, and maybe I'll put a clip up of a video I took of that. But initially, I made these boxes and I covered them. I made the boxes first. It had nothing to do with covering them. So this was like stage 2, right? So when I ended up covering them, it was great for when we were leaving and entering the growing season. Ultimately, and maybe I'll show a picture of how bad it looks right now because I have to kind of reclaim what that situation was. But yeah, I think when being in the growing season, if you want to look for like the driest soil, it's probably underneath that little greenhouse topper that I made. So then when I really questioned, it was at the end of last season, and I questioned like, well, if you're gonna fix this, right, it's a problem, and we going back to permaculture principles. Actually, not a principle, but something you always hear is the problem is a solution, right? So if the problem is a solution, I'm kind of like, well, water is what's lacking, but I'm the one who introduced the sun and the greenhouse effect, and I could leave it open, that's fine, but for whatever reason, I'm not understanding the humidity aspect. Can I target something that grows in there and doesn't die? Sure. But there's just like something off, and I think there's too much of an investment on my part. So I don't feel my lifestyle, my style of things fits what I initially thought was going to be like this super great thing. But yeah, I mean, somebody could adapt easily, I think, to, some sort of greenhouse to make the season longer, right? Okay, so you have a longer season. If you go by, I think his name is Elliot Coleman, and he talks about when you cover something, you're jumping grow zone. So I'm in 6B, so potentially I'm in like a 7 growing zone situation. If you cover it again, then you skip another zone. So you're not really limited in that, from that standpoint, and being able to start a season early. I think it's really the energy cost. It's the skill set that you're gonna need to have, and how much energy is it gonna cost you, right? So when we're in the winter, where am I getting my water from? But the plants don't need as much, water. But again, where am I getting water from? So I have to be very selective of how I would put stuff in the greenhouse, or so. There's just, like I said, it's just different challenges. But let me think about a pro of being in New York that would, or like the Northeast. All right, I got one. Though the land has gotten pretty arid over the years, and when I say arid, I'm not no scientist or anything. What I can tell you is, for years, I've been telling my wife, telling anybody who'll listen, something's not right. I've dug in this land each year for at least the last 7 or 8 years. Every year I'm going to find myself doing some sort of digging. And when I used to dig, I was always, I don't know if I say, I was shocked by how cool when you go down, like you dig down, let's say 6 inches or maybe a little more. Because I was digging post holes and digging for fences, just a bunch of different digging. And I always saw worms and, life that I could identify and recognize. That was always there. And it was always cool. There would be this like moist feeling of like, that there's moisture there. The last 2 years plus, if you're digging in midsummer, once that summer hits and before snow, you're not getting the same feeling. I'm not I'm not able to feel the moisture. I don't see as much identifiable life. Obviously, I know that there could be life in there, but I'm not seeing the same type of life. But when you talk the risk of somebody who doesn't have access to water and a drought being possible, obviously droughts are possible in the whole East Coast. I don't know nothing about the West Coast. Obviously, we know there's droughts. But I think New York City was finally declaring, warnings of a drought last year. But I know we're in drought. And I realized that they judge a drought based on the retention of the water in the reservoir. So they don't really judge a drought based on any piece of land that is not able to hold water like it used to. So I could just make the assumption that that's legit. Water is not being held as much. But so you figure you start working on your land and you're in New York, you don't know how much it's gonna snow and how cold it's gonna be, but you know that moisture is going to be there. That precipitation is going to be there. You know that there's going to be a certain amount of frost hours in play. And I think that if you were knowledgeable about, how to harvest that water, or just knowing how to turn your plants down for the season. And I'm not like perfect at it, and I have obviously goals to get there, but I think that you could pretty much secure a drought-free plot of land. And I'm not talking about massive land, because I also believe that you don't really need massive land to produce a lot, especially like a family, a small community. So I've seen so many examples where you don't need massive land. So I don't really think in those terms, right? I don't think in farm terms. I think in like homestead terms. So I think so. New York is or the Northeast is pretty good when it comes to avoiding those situations, or you could kind of reverse the situation. You could reverse, I guess the way I see it, you can reverse a potential drought situation, because the seasons are going to change, and you're going to have to, you're going to have to live with that water that's coming down. It's going to stay on your land for some time. It's going to be uncomfortable. But, it happens every year, and if you don't get no exotic animals, you should be fine. My chickens, I've never seen an issue with my chickens during the season. During the winter season, I don't have an insulated coop. In my reading, I don't believe in insulating the coop. I can do a little bit more to just cover the coop. I've been planning on putting windows, but haven't really seen much of an issue. The chickens, what they ask for is, do we have a place to walk when there's snow? That's my chickens are asking me. That's what I'm observing, is that they don't really like to walk on ice and snow. So, I find ways to make sure, whether it's like dump a bunch of leaves during that time to give them something to walk on. But as a whole, I think New York is, a lot of places look expensive these days when it comes to land. So I wouldn't say, I guess if this was like 10, 15 years ago, I would say New York is probably anywhere you're closer to a city. You're probably going to be, the cost of living is probably a little higher. But, I wouldn't say I'm totally content with where my space is as far as land, because I do have aspirations in my learning of things that I want to do. When you talk about the growing season, what that says to me is um, I can't grow certain trees that I want to grow, certain fruits that I want to have, that I really like and I enjoy and I think are good for health benefits and satisfaction. So I want to be in that loop. So either I find a nice barter situation, or I go and be a little bit more free to buy land in another place and start growing a property, a food forest, whatever it is. So okay, I'll just move on to the next thing I wanted to talk about. Um, yeah, so today, I guess we'll just do this straight through, cuts. Today, you know what? Let's just walk through. Before I had any coffee or food, I chipped up a lot of debris that I had. I was working with this Harbor Freight chipper, and I did think it was an interesting thing to talk about because I'm big on like value. I'm very frugal. I don't like wasting my money. So when it comes down to value, I would say the Harbor Freight chipper is one of the biggest things that I purchased that didn't have like a direct payoff. I don't have enough land to where I'm doing all this chipping all the time. But I would say this: I've not had a problem, unlike other machines that I purchased. I don't take great care of any of the machines, but every time I, take this thing out, I think it's been two or 3 years. It turns over like I could start it no problem. If I treat the machine with respect and I'm not trying to like jam wood in there, I'm able to like get through and make chips. And I don't feel like I think I spent about $600 on it, but I also spent 5 years dreaming of having it, not knowing what it was going to be like. And yeah, it doesn't compare to like a big industrial chipper. When we had some, what kind of trees are those? We had ash trees that had that disease that's going around America, and well, not just America, but I think it's the Japanese ash borer or something. But the trees were dying and they were kind of getting unsafe. We had smaller kids, so we were at the time like really sensitive about, oh, a tree will just fall. Tree probably wasn't gonna fall. Branches probably could have been taken care of, but we didn't know any better, so we came and got all the trees cut. And it was early on when I was all, I don't want to say this was like, if I say 6 years, if I look back at the pictures, it probably was 4 years ago, because I'm really off when it comes to when things have applied. I'll explain my trauma in the future, but yeah, so I do have pictures to prove when it was. But one of the downsides is that I was so happy to be getting into, gardening, that I just told them, I'll keep all the chips, all of the wood chips. And I didn't know that the big industrial chippers, they don't really make, I mean, it's just my opinion, I guess. They don't make quality chips, or they don't make chips how I was trying to apply them. And it took me over a year to get rid of, I mean, it was like 8-foot mountain. It was two 8-foot mountain sized piles of chips. And I used them around, and did they prevent weeds? In most cases, no, they didn't. It was cool, but it was a lot of work, moving that stuff around all the time. And I started thinking about, chipping, because that was an experience. But the reality is, you're always going to have this type of debris. All this stuff grows around if you have any kind of trees. So I wanted to invest in a chipper. So chipper is one of those tools that um, it's not really, there's like these, chip your leaves, shredders and chippers. So that's like a $100, $150. There's no like 200, 250, 300, 350, 400, 400. Those options, that gap doesn't exist. And I'm so used to buying, I wouldn't say cheap, I would say definitely inexpensive tools, or tools that I deem to be like starter tools. I still feel like for the most, and I'm totally fine with buying what I deem to be starter tools. I'm not gonna scream out a brand because I don't want any of that kind of heat. But let's just say, I don't know which way this is going, but if this has an R, the next letter is a Y, you pretty much know what I'm talking about. And I'm greened out. I got all these starter tools, right? Now, as I advance my skills and as I have broader requirements for what I'm doing, I could acknowledge that there is a difference, right? So I'm so used to spending money in the like less than $200 range, but when it came to the chipper, what are you gonna do? So Harbor Freight's offering, I want to say I got like a 10% off, but I'm pretty sure I was upwards to 600, right? So I guess what I'm trying to address is that when you start making that type of an investment, how do you really get the value back? Whereas most, I would say 85% of the tools that I've purchased, even if I've broken a tool, how do you really estimate and or calculate, not really estimate, but how do you calculate the value that you got back to know that you made the right investment, right? I was talking to my brother-in-law today about, like, I have a cement mixer. It's not that I mix a lot of cement. It's that when you do, when you don't have the hands, which I'll, hopefully discuss it in a broader scope. But when you don't have the hands, people, resources, these projects aren't going to get done as fast. And that rental price, which sounds great, really becomes it becomes 3x, 4x, 5x. So a simple project is not going to be accomplishable, and I'm not going to have the budget because I don't. Again, going back to value, I don't think that project is worth it. So a $600 investment for me is not paying, let's say, $150 a day for a chipper, and I need that chipper across 8 days, and for the whole, the whole season or summer or whatever it is. So I figured, okay, I'm gonna get that, but how do you really calculate? Well, it takes time, right? So the skill of keeping your equipment in good working order is a part of it, right? Because you can't keep investing into your equipment and then you're exploding that whole value conversation. So that's what I just been thinking about. But today I realized, like, if I get into these routines, I'm probably really gonna understand what a purchase like that does for me. And yeah, I think that I'm on the right path when it comes to, yeah, and not that 600 is like an enormous investment, but some people are very careful with their money and their decisions, and a lot of what I think I'm doing is being careful or being diligent to understand that I don't have infinite dollars, and I don't have infinite resources. So in order to bring back things to my life, I have to always analyze that relationship But that was it. I just wanted to talk briefly about that. Hopefully, I gave some decent context. I would like to, continue to make these type of videos, just to kind of share who I am, what I am, um, where I'm going. Who knows? I don't really know, but I think it is helpful. The real reason why I stopped and said, okay, let me just do this. Like I said, I jumped on Les' channel. He had a couple words to say about, holding up the camera and just doing it. I wouldn't say that I'm actually shy. I think the challenging part is you're you're speaking to nowhere. So what Led was able to do for me was just give me a platform to say something, and I really appreciate the people who came and stopped by and gave me a follow, and that follow means that somebody's really gonna actually listen to what I'm saying, and I'm not speaking into the ether. So the more I do that, the more that relationship grows, and I could be a part of a community. I'm always willing to chop it up and have a conversation, with real people. I think these are real serious times, and these are real serious things. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Like I said, I don't want to. It ain't really about me, but I'm a pretty talented guy. I have a lot to offer to the community. So yeah, subscribe and check me out, and we'll grow together. Peace.